So with football now, again, like every single week, our segue is into football. The Deshaun Watson situation has kind of come to a close. Deshaun Watson last week was traded to the Cleveland Browns, waiving his no-trade clause. The Cleveland Browns gave up a 2022, 23, and 24 first-round pick, as well as a 2023 third-rounder, 2022, and 2024 fourth-rounders. So the Cleveland Browns gave up a lot of compensation there, as well as giving Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed 5-year contract, $230 million. So that is a huge price to pay for a top 8. He is undoubtedly a top 7 or so quarterback in the league. However, there is the worry that the Deshaun Watson issues aren't going away anytime soon. Deshaun Watson criminally was cleared of all charges. He does now have to face 23 civil cases as well. And there is the possibility with some physical evidence that these cases could be reopened. Now, I wouldn't like to get into the nitty-gritty. I really wouldn't like to talk about, do I think he did it? Do I think he's innocent? That is not my place to say. That's for the judicial system to say. However, either way, when you bring in Deshaun Watson, you're bringing in a lot of baggage. You're bringing in all that's gone on over the last year and a half, and if he is guilty, you are bringing in at the very least, questionable person. And now that is something the Cleveland Browns are going to have to deal with these, at the very least, next 5 years with that fully guaranteed contract. And if you're looking at it from just a football sense, moving away from the legal sense of things, as a football sense, it makes complete sense. The AFC is insanely stacked at the quarterback position. You have 7 of the top 9 or 10 quarterbacks all in the AFC. We're talking Mahomes, we're talking Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow just got the Bengals to the Super Bowl in his second year, Herbert, Russell Wilson comes over from the NFC. The AFC is going to be a mess. AFC has, like I just said, some of the best quarterbacks in the entire league. And if you're the Cleveland Browns, outside of quarterback this last season, you had the roster to compete. You had a top 3 offensive line. You had a top 5, arguably, defense. You have Nick Chubb in the backfield. You have Kareem Hunt in the backfield. You had Odell, Jarvis Landry. Let's be honest, Baker drove those 2 away. You had everything you could have wanted outside of the quarterback position. And looking back last season, halfway through the year, I started to say maybe Cleveland should look at Deshaun Watson. This is a lot around the time where the Miami Dolphins were kicking the tires on Watson before the trade deadline. The Dolphins were sitting at 1-6 or so, I believe. And as a Dolphins fan, I had to consider it. I knew what was going on with the team, and I knew that this was going to hold over the team for a long time. And it did get to the point where it was like saying, screw it, just do it. But then as the season went on, as the trade deadline came and passed, and now into this offseason, I sat and thought about it, is it really worth it? The Dolphins, as I'll get into later, could have gone in 1-2 directions, and they decided to stick with to it. But for the Cleveland Browns, they decided it was time to give up on Baker Mayfield. And quite frankly, I can't blame them. Baker Mayfield has been, putting it as kindly as possible, Baker Mayfield has been a headache to the Cleveland Browns ever since being drafted. He was most certainly overdrafted as the number 1 overall pick back when he was drafted in 2018, ahead of the likes of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, who both of which we didn't know would be this great. However, they are. One of which is in his own division and has already won an MVP. Seems to be a really good leader, seems to fit really well with the Baltimore culture. Has had 0 issues throughout his career in terms of controversy or just looking at him with a sideways eye. Meanwhile, Baker Mayfield, it's pretty much been only questions. Can his durability hold up? This last season, he was very injured and played through it, and to his credit, that is respectable. However, they did struggle with him as quarterback. The season before, they got to the divisional round of the playoffs and was a great job doing that, but that's really all Baker has done in a Cleveland Browns uniform. And now Baker Mayfield is going to need to find a new home, and that next home is going to humble him. Really, the only openings left are the Seattle Seahawks, who have a depleted roster, who have a terrible offensive line, and the Carolina Panthers, who are a rebuilding team, which is something I feel like I say every single year. They think they bring in a quarterback that's good enough, ultimately ends up not being good enough. Now the Browns get to move off and wipe their hands and say, you know what, we tried with Baker Mayfield, and he has some things you could build around. I still would say I would like Tua over Baker Mayfield, but he has the cannon of an arm. His personality can be good. It can work. If he's winning and the team is winning, you can accept the personality. With Aaron Rodgers, the team has gotten the number 1 overall seed back-to-back years. They're regularly in the playoffs. He's won multiple MVPs. Aaron Rodgers, his personality is somewhat livable. But even then, he is scrutinized a lot, and deservedly so. And with Baker Mayfield, you don't have the winning. You don't have the number 1 overall or the number 1 seed. Have 1 playoff appearance his entire career. And that roster last year, it is really a shame that they finished with a losing record. So the Cleveland Browns, understandably so, move off of him, bring in Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson, like I said, he is going to have to face the civil lawsuits against him. I do believe those will be settled out of court. And if there is any physical evidence, which there was a lack thereof physical evidence, which is why he ultimately was found not guilty on all charges, if any physical evidence is brought forward, the statute of limitations allows them to open this case back up for, I'm not sure how many years, but certainly this year. And just looking at this year, I have a hard time believing he's not going to be suspended. Now, we can sit here and argue the validity of Calvin Ridley's year-long suspension of betting on his own team to win in a game he didn't play in. I'd argue he should be suspended, but not nearly as long. But if you're going to set the bar so high for betting $1,500 on a game you didn't play in, what's the bar for all these accusations? Now, the NFL is the NFL, and they're going to handle it how they usually do. He's probably going to get a 6-game suspension, 8-game suspension. If you're asking me, he should be probably suspended at least for a year, but we know that's not going to happen, especially with the star quarterback. So the Browns are going to likely be without him for, let's call it, 8 games, and in his absence, they've gone out and signed Jacoby Brissett, formerly of the Miami Dolphins, and good luck. Any Browns fans listening to this, good luck. Jacoby Brissett stinks. You know, with a better offensive line and a running game, he might be more serviceable, but he still stinks. So you're not going to get a lot of production out of your quarterback for the first 8 weeks or so, but I guess if you're the Browns, you see that as worth it. Deshaun Watson, moving on into the future, will be the Browns quarterback. If you look at what he has, just in terms of his tangibles, he has a great arm, cannon of an arm. He's very athletic. That has come to bite him a few times. He has had a few injuries throughout his career, but he's very athletic. And he can move. He has the arm strength. He has the body. So he's got everything you want from him. And you look, the last year of games he played, he led the league in passing. Led the league in passing with 4,800 yards passing, 33 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, which is incredible, especially if you consider the fact that that was on a terrible Texans team, which had just traded DeAndre Hopkins the previous season, really only had Laramie Tunsil at offensive line, had Bill O'Brien as head coach. That led to 4 wins. His greatness then only led to 4 wins. Now you put him with a Cleveland Browns roster, which is built out to win now. Once he is with the team, let's just say the Cleveland Browns can roll out a 4-4 record. With that roster, with everything around them, even with a terrible quarterback and Jacoby Brissett being there, the Browns should go 4-4. Then you have another 9 games with the now 17-game season for Deshaun Watson to step in and try to get a playoff spot. And it's going to be difficult. You got to assume that 3 of the playoff spots are going to go to AFC West teams. One being, of course, the AFC West champion, and then 2 of which being the wild card, either being Seattle, the Chargers, the Raiders. I'm going to assume at least 2 of those teams are able to get in. So if you're the Browns, you want to get them back as soon as possible and get them in there playing. This trade really changes the landscape of the NFL and is going to be big for the Cleveland Browns moving on into the 2022-2023 season. I can most certainly see them making a playoff spot if they're able just to maintain with Jacoby Brissett. So the Deshaun Watson situation is finally dealt with, and we'll see what the future lies for Deshaun Watson for the Cleveland Browns.